Good morning, everyone. Hi, it's Stacy with Loving My Veteran, and we are walking in my shoes this morning. Sorry, I am late as usual, or a few minutes late, so didn't mean to be. It's time for a little coffee. Things we need to get going on here. So I'm gonna give people just a few minutes since I was late. And I'm going to turn the ringer on my phone off because you know that'll go off at some point in the middle. And today we're going to talk about something that I think is really important because without it, and not a clear understanding, we don't, it's limitations and accommodations. They are totally different. And when we get into a world where we create or buy into limitations, we limit, exactly like it says, people's ability, whether it is our own, whether it is our spouses, whether it is our children. Limitations. Now, I'm not talking about rules and guidelines that are normal to be followed, like, you can't just let your kids eat whatever they want for every meal they want. But when you learn limitations is different than accommodations, you get rid of the enabling behavior. Okay, because see, enabling behavior comes from, thanks Meredith, good morning. Enabling behavior comes from where we set limits or they set limits or both of us have set these limits. I'm not going to do this. No, I'm not going to give here. And it becomes enabling behavior. And then we don't understand why we're to the place we are when we're really there. And I know that probably just didn't make sense to you, but it will, I promise, as we go forward with this conversation. One of the things that I remember early on, somebody asked me, how did you finally decide to do this? And I said, well, I wrote a little blog called Drowning in PTSD. And I remember feeling like I was just drowning in PTSD. I didn't know how to manage the triggers. I didn't know how to communicate. I didn't understand the mentality. I didn't understand the warfighter in him. I didn't understand that my behavior was not good for me either. I didn't understand all those things, and I had no boundaries. We had zero boundaries. We had zero communication, other than I love you or whatever. But I mean, we could talk about like the weather and that kind of stuff. But good conversation about the way that you make me feel or the way that I made him feel. We had zero. Good morning, Pamela. We had zero of those going on in our lives. We didn't know what they were. I was drowning. I didn't even begin to know what to do. And I felt like, what do I start with? Because you're overwhelmed, right? I mean, you're completely overwhelmed when you start this part and you're like, wait a minute. I want a loving relationship. What happened to the person I fell in love with? Where is that person I love? Where's this person that I need? Where are they at? And what's happened to us, and now I'm overwhelmed and I'm walking on eggshells and I'm afraid to run the vacuum because it might trigger something, or drop the broom by accident because the drop of a broom may sound like a shot going off, right? And so what happens during this is you feel like you're drowning. And you have to know that there's a life ring. There's a life ring somewhere. And you have to find it. Because when you try to take it all on, there is no way, and I will say this again, there is no way that you can fix boundaries, have communications, manage triggers, deal with outbursts, deal with your own well-being, know where to start. There's no way you can do all of that at one time. There's no way that you can have a beginning point and an end point. It doesn't work that way. So I just had to have a life raft. And when I got this little bit of glimmer of a life ring, and it came from reading Welby O'Brien's book, it gave me a little bit of hope. Okay, it gave me a little bit of hope that, hey, I can get through this and I can start getting through this. And then my perspective changed, and then I grew. Good morning, Jen. And then my perspective grew. So what I want to talk about today is limitations and accommodations, because these make a huge sense. It starts out, and because I actually wrote this and I'm going to post it later, but we often define people who can't do things the way we would, or the way that the world would perceive as normal, as having limitations. Limitations, and the definition of limitations is defined as a limiting rule or restriction. Okay, that's a limitation. It is a rule or a restriction. So, example, have surgery, your doctor says you can't drive for 2 weeks. Right? That is a limitation. You can't drive for 2 weeks because you had surgery. It doesn't mean you forgot how to drive. What it means is you can't drive for 2 weeks. That's a limitation. Accommodations are defined as the process of adapting to someone or something new. Okay? So that is just a whole new theory for people. It is adapting. You hear that word? Adapting. Adapting is a great word. You adapt, you evolve. We talk about it all the time, about evolving. So when you set limitations and you get in this mindset of, you know what, I can't do this today because here's my limitation. Your veteran, for example. If we always get in the mindset that our veteran can never go out in public, we have now created a limitation. It is a rule. It is a restriction. You can't go out in public today. You don't do well at Walmart today. But if you make an accommodation that is adapting and working a little different plan to get to something new, because he hasn't gone, now it becomes an accommodation. And we do well with accommodations. We make accommodations for everything. We do it all the time. You got somebody coming over to eat and they're allergic to nuts. You don't bake chocolate chip cookies with nuts in them. Okay, that's an accommodation. It doesn't mean that you don't bake chocolate chip cookies. Right? I'm deathly allergic to seafood. We still go to seafood restaurants. I eat a steak. But it doesn't mean I don't go out to eat. That's an accommodation. A limitation would be, I'm sorry, Stacy, we're going to a seafood restaurant. You have to stay home today. Well, where would that put me? Where would that put me in my mindset? Where would that put me in my brain? Where's that going to set me off to? And it's the same thing with us. We get overwhelmed because we have our list of things that we do in a day. We all do. Everybody has their list of things they do in a day. And some of us do other things and other doesn't make one list right or one list wrong. But you know, you get up, you get to breakfast for the world, you take care of the kids, you get them off to school, you get them dressed, they're home, they're toddlers, you get them all set for the morning. You don't have kids, but you fix the meals for hubby and you're going off to work and you do the work and then you come home and then there's laundry and then there's dinner and then there's dishes and we have all this stuff that is going on in our lives, right? And so we create this Well, dishes have to be done today. Dishes have to be done. This has to be done. That has to be done. And if not, it has become this limitation. Well, you know what? We're just never going to do that again. When the reality is, make accommodation for it. You make accommodations for it. See, we have a new thing. I have 2 laundry baskets. One is whites, one is darks. The clothes go in the laundry basket. When one of the basket gets full, we go put it in the washing machine. It's simple. Hey, does it mean I do laundry every day? Nope. Does it mean you do laundry every day? Nope. But guess what? When one of the baskets gets full, we go put it in the washing machine. That's an accommodation for what we can and cannot do. Right now, I can't pick up laundry and put it in the basket. Well, I can put it in the basket. I just can't pick it up and move it around. So he'll bring it to me and I'll fold it. I can fold it. That's an accommodation for a temporary limitation. So having accommodations allows you, because you are adapting. So remember, accommodations allow you to adapt. You are adapting to go forward. Okay? You are adapting to be able to continue with something or a new situation. Okay, so that's an accommodation. I mean, that's just as simple as it can be. Think about people who need a handicap accessible shower. They need a handicap accessible shower is an accommodation. It doesn't mean they're never going to bathe again. Never bathing again becomes a limitation. But a handicap accessible shower is an accommodation. And when we start looking at what we create as limitations on ourselves, on our spouses, on our children, versus what accommodations do we make to protect our sanity. Remember, at the end of the day, good morning, Marianne. At the end of the day, and people's like, oh, this is not good. Yes, this is good. This is the very first way you grab onto the life raft. The very first way you grab onto that ring. At the end of the day, the only person you have to be good for is you. And I don't care if we have to say this 100 times. Maybe we'll have a whole walking in my shoes where all we say is, I am only need to be good for me today. I only need to be good for me today. Because when you become good for you, and when you protect you, everything else starts to fall into place. When you protect you, everything else starts to fall into place. Now, that does not mean it's going to be simple. That does not mean that it's going to be easy. That does not mean that it's going to be tough to enforce those boundaries. It does not mean that you're going to want to cross that boundary you've set and say, just this one time. Because when you say just this one time, you're not following through on the accommodations that you've made to move forward. You are messing up with limitations. You're conflicting boundaries. Okay? You're conflicting boundaries at this point, and you are no longer protecting you. I matter. I come first at the end of the day. You're not going to make the PTSD go away. Not going to happen. Okay, people, and I have a hard time, and I think people in society have a hard time understanding about the fixing of things like PTSD. Okay, so just use the same scenario. We know that PTSD in our veterans is a injury from war. Okay? It's an injury from being in the service. Period. We know that. Combat PTSD is an injury from being in the service. It is an injury just like missing a limb. Okay? I can't take his PTSD from him any more than I can grow him an arm. And I think that is what is so hard. That is what is so hard. Is we think we can take things away from people and make it better, and we try because that's our nature. I mean, just a nurturing nature. We try to do that, but we can't. So the way things work is you protect you, you take care of you, and I'm not, people get like, oh, here she goes. No, I'm not talking about hoarding money. I'm not talking about any of that stuff. I'm talking about mentally get right. Okay? Mentally get right. It is important that you mentally get right. Protect that. There are times we have to let things go. There are times we have to let very hurtful things let go. Because I'm going to tell Jen and Meredith, I'm going to tell both of you this, and I don't know your stories exactly, and I understand completely. But we've had a story and a situation go on, and I'm not going to get into a whole lot of those details. It has nothing to do with my veteran. It's a family-related thing. Okay? And I kept allowing it, right? And it was like, well, the phone call would happen, and you did this and da-da-da. Whoa, I'm not talking to you when you're like this. Hang up. Then, a little while later, another day or so, hey, what are you doing? Thinking things are fine. Well, you did this and da-da-da-da, and you're the... And then I realized that I'm allowing that in my space every time I answer the phone that way. Okay, for a long time I listened to it. Like the cussing and the screaming and the hollering. No. That's me, my space. You're not going to get in my space. So I have two choices. I can have a conversation, escalate it, because I know that's where it'll go, because I know the person I'm talking about or talking to, right? But here's the thing. You can let it go. Protect you. It's one of those things. And Jen says, I'm probably to blow up. I might blow up into something I'm not ready for. Protect you, Jen. Protect you. Do you need to get it out? Then get it out. Because they're either going to be pissed off or not pissed off. They're either going to blow up or they're not going to blow up. You have no control over their actions. See, that's where we forget about things when we move forward in creating rules and making accommodations. Oh, just because I make an accommodation doesn't mean that you can't do things. Just because you make an accommodation for somebody, don't sit here and think, oh, well, I'm going to make an accommodation. They can't, I'm not going to let them do anything. No. Okay? If you need, there's people, they go to Disney all day, every day. I watch them all day, every day when we go. They go to Disney, right? And they got like freaking ventilators and oxygen and all this stuff. And they're enjoying that moment. And they've had accommodations made, right? But they're still enjoying the moment. There's times that you have the kid that is short of breath. Okay, and can't do something. But you get them to do what they can do until then. I think about my friend, Brooke. Okay, so Brooke's got this little boy. They knew he's 5 now. I'm so excited. David Gray. I can't even call him baby David Gray anymore. But they knew when she was pregnant there was going to be a major heart defect. And, of course, everybody was like, terminate pregnancy. She decided not to. It was something her husband decided not to do. And so David Gray came into this world literally open heart surgery after open heart surgery. It's just been a challenge for the first 2 years when they were at the hospital more than they were home. But Then he had a nurse with him almost all the time. But you know what? David Gray had to follow the rules. Did he have to have a ventilator? Yep. But was he allowed to throw toys all over the house? Nope. When it came time to pick him up, did he have to pick him up? Yep. So she made accommodations by putting his ventilator somewhere where he could get wherever he wanted and play with his toys. But she also made him follow the rules. So accommodations, okay? The accommodations don't exempt you from doing things. And don't exempt you from being accountable. So understand that. Accommodations don't exempt you from being accountable. But we have to look at what is an accommodation and what is a limitation. Right? It is really, really, I'm reading the messages, sorry. It is really important that you understand not to place limitations, to embrace accommodations, but accommodations come with accountability. Everybody get that? Don't establish limitations. Create and evolve accommodations, but they all come with accountability. I've just totally added more to your little pie to deal with. But again, it is not about your veteran. It's not about your father. It's not about your mother. It's not about your boss. It's not about your children. Okay? It is not about any of that. It is about protecting you at the end of the day. It is about protecting you at the end of the day. Who matters most? We do. And it goes back to the very beginning when I said, when I got started in this, I felt like I was drowning and I needed somebody to throw me a life raft. The problem happens when we get involved in situations and we try to talk about positive things, and y'all uplift me every day because I'm watching these messages pop up on the side and they're like, hey, if you need somebody, reach out to me, we'll talk you through it, we'll be here for you. Y'all, that is amazing to see this go on, because I watch it and I'm so excited to see the uplifting. Because the very first thing I learned as a lifeguard way early on in my teens was you don't ever jump in the water to save a drowning victim. Ever. Somebody's drowning, you don't jump in the water to save them. Okay, unless you're on Baywatch, but you don't jump in the water to save them. You throw them the ring. Right? That's what you do, because if you don't, then you end up in the drowned and the panic too, and 90% of the time, the rescuer drowns. So when we all sit here and get in this, oh my God, we're negative here and here and here and here and here, and I need advice and I need help and I need this, and all we do is get into the same waller and the same muck and the same thing, you're not saving anybody. You're drowning with them. You're drowning with them. So when you learn that you're the most important person, you, me, going to talk about me, sorry. When you are the most important person, okay, you've established your boundaries. Because first of all, you can't even establish a boundary till you understand you're more important. You can't even establish a boundary until you find out that you're more important. Can't do it. Because what are you putting your boundaries up for? If you don't have value, why are you putting boundaries up? So it is all this big circle, and people are like, well, where do you start? I don't know. You know, they tell me to write a book, and and it's like done, sort of. It's not in any semblance of order. It was supposed to be out on Kindle the end of this month. I'm like, because none of it makes sense orderly. Where do you start? What do you open the page up? Well, if I'm having an issue with boundaries today and you're having an issue with communication and you're having an issue with self-esteem and you're having an issue with understanding PTSD, how do you start the damn thing? And if you live in my life, we could be having a great moment and be like, yes, how do you enjoy the little moments in life? And then something triggers something else because, I don't know, a car door slams or this or that, the other. And now I need a totally new navigational manual. So I laughed and I said, okay, look, I'm going to give you all the pieces that go in it. Y'all put it in some order. And I really want it in no order because nothing in our lives is in order. Nothing in our lives is in order. Meredith, I'm going to tell you this. The hardest thing I ever had to do was learn I am not 13 in my parents' presence. Hardest thing I ever had to do. Hardest thing I ever had to do was learn that I was not 13 in my parents' presence. Oh, girl, I do that when I read the Bible too. That is like, I get in this journey and I start twisting and turning and going everywhere. It's so much fun. So what I'm saying to all of you is this. Put yourself first. Put yourself first. You are allowed to talk back. You're not allowed to be rude when you do it. Set your boundaries. The boundaries with your husband, sister, is the same boundaries with your daddy. That's the part that's great. Once you learn how to establish boundaries, look, you're not going to talk to me this way. This is not a behavior I allow. This is not coming into my space. We tend to think that they have to be established towards our husband or our spouse. No, those boundaries are the same for everybody. I mean, look, think about your yard, okay, right? So you got this fence up around your yard. So is the fence up to everybody has to walk through it? Or is it one of those things that everybody has to walk through it, or does the fence just disappear? What goes on with that fence? No, when you set those boundaries are there. That was a hard thing for me to learn. One of the hardest things I ever had to learn. Because the PTSD with him is a piece of cake. The learning how to deal with the rest of the world is not so easy. Because those boundaries are there, period. Because I'm going to tell you, one of the biggest mistakes you can ever make is when you set boundaries for you. Yeah, because those boundaries protect you. They're not about him, right? But when you set boundaries for you and your spouse sees you move your boundaries for other people, they feel less important and they feel like those boundaries are targeting them and they feel like they don't matter. Boundaries are there to protect you, period. Is it hard to have a conversation with an adult, especially your parents, that you've been told to say yes to your whole life? That we answered yes sir and no sir to our whole life? And be able to say, hold on, I don't agree with this. Remember, you have rights. And when they say, well, so I'm sorry. I feel this way when you talk to me this way, and I'm not going to we can have a conversation, but not when you're talking to me this way. Meredith, hardest thing I ever had to do. Hardest thing I ever had to do. But the relationship, and I've always had a good relationship with my mom, but the relationship is a trillion times better. Trillion times better. It's just got to happen. And it takes time, but stand your gun. You can do it. I have faith in you. All right, so I'm going to wrap up here, but we have boot camp tonight. Yay. Emails went out with the links. If you did not get one, please Message me or send me an email if you have registered. That class is full. Full. So it should be interesting to see how we do. I've never done a Zoom with 100 people in it before, or 80 some people in it before, so this should be really interesting. Um, so we're going to do that tonight. Don't forget, open your heart for Purple Heart. I understand everybody isn't in a position where they can give right now. I get all that. I truly understand. This is for Richard and Nakia. But if you could please share that GoFundMe. We are so close to having what we need. So if you could just share that GoFundMe so we can get those funds to finish getting Nakia and Richard what they need, so that I don't ever have to have Nakia call me again to tell me goodbye. This painful conversation I think I've witnessed in a long time was her calling and telling me goodbye. I'm like, what do you mean goodbye? She's like, we're going to freeze to death. I'm going to die with Richard in this house. And we can't do that to them or anybody. No veteran. So it's Open Your Heart for a Purple Heart. It's on our page. It's on the group. Please share that through your social media. Like I said, every dollar helps. $1, $2, $5. But the more you share, the better the odds are that we're going to get it out there. So just ask. People don't always know unless we ask. So I'm asking y'all to please share that. But boot camp is tonight. I got a lot I got to finish up. My mom is coming in town tomorrow to see her first grade granddaughter for the first time. So we have to go pick her up at the airport. You know, I'm resting and recovering from surgery. Yeah, it's all good. So, I'm Stacy. This has been Walking in My Shoes. We are loving my veteran. Y'all have a blessed, blessed day. And we will see you tonight if you're doing boot camp. And not, we'll see you in the morning. Bye.